Hi, thank you. I'm asking this question on behalf of Gary Mikowski from the Canadian Hearing Society. So his question is, are you supporting the provincial government to give special power during the G20 that arrested a deaf kitchen worker who had been denied to receive sign language, interpreters, or any access to his particular needs, and he was held for 2 hours. Would you make a commitment to review the Toronto Police Service's accessibility policy to enforce the Toronto policies to accommodate persons with disabilities during an arrest or due process?
Okay, Joe Pantalone, you're first.
Well, the provincial government, somewhat very underhanded, giving new powers without proper consultation or notification to anybody is simply unacceptable in a democracy. In a democracy, it's about not the end, it's the means as well, the process, and that was simply wrong. And I know that it should not happen, and so forth. In terms of the other questions about supporting the Toronto Police Services having accessibilities, policies, and so forth, to make sure that people who have disabilities don't get caught in events which they're not, because of their disability, they cannot be aware of. Absolutely. Every citizen, every resident has that right, and therefore, a wrong seems to have occurred there and needs to be rectified, make sure it doesn't happen again.
Rocco Rossi.
Well, I think we absolutely need a review of what went right and what went wrong over the weekend. Clearly, it was an enormous challenge. In many circumstances, businesses, people, and the police were put into incredibly difficult circumstances, but that doesn't justify everything. And certainly the policy needs to be reviewed, because there will be other instances in the future. We're going to have the 2015 Pan Am Games coming. There will be other major world leaders. There will be significant crowds. And we need to work out together as a society what and how we're going to be able to police those circumstances to provide services, but at the same time respecting due process.
George Smitherman.
Well, Rocco and I think took a similar position, which is that with all that went on, certainly there are lessons which need to be learned. I think it's important to acknowledge, as a former member of the Ontario Legislature, Gary Mikowski served there, I think as a colleague of Giorgio Mammoliti's with distinction, and has done amazing work for people in Ontario. This case that he raises is another example of several that I've heard of that warrant review, if for no other reason than to learn these lessons going forward. After the G20 last year in London, Mayor Boris Johnson struck 3 independent reviews, each of which created, I'm sure, information that can allow, even in very challenging and disturbing circumstances, law enforcement officials to operate with a greater degree of knowledge and awareness. So I think this reinforces why we need this to be a teaching moment, so we can learn these lessons going forward.
Thank you. Sarah Thomson.
Yes, I found in these times safety is often an excuse for trampling our civil rights, and that has to be looked at. What the province did, in my view, they didn't give us enough notice. They didn't inform us before they changed the laws. And I think we have to do a full line-by-line review of the accessibility policy and look towards moving it forward. We have to protect people, but we also have to protect people's rights.
Thank you, candidates. Rocco Rossi, you'll get the first chance to answer this next question. And it's...
Giorgio.
Did I swear I don't have a train to catch. I don't know why this is happening. Okay, Giorgio, forgive me. Go ahead.
I appreciate it. First of all, I would like to say hello to Gary from me. We did sit in the legislature together. He is a wonderful, wonderful man. Taught us a lot, and for me, it's important to recognize the need for change. Now, this is change that has to come from the provincial government. The municipal level of government really can't change the legislation in dealing with someone who gets arrested. Only provincially and federally you can do that. Will I, as the mayor, support that kind of initiative? Absolutely. Of course I will. I've got my own issues with respect to what happened on the weekend. It's a little different than the rest. Perhaps a little different than some of you. I, for one, don't like violence. And I think the minute that any violence breaks out, I think that those that are there demonstrating could be put at risk. So I'm not sure that the police did the wrong thing with respect to this weekend. However, if somebody is being denied an ability to communicate, then we've got to revisit those kinds of pieces of legislation. This isn't about policy, folks. This is legislation. We've got to change legislation to give people those rights. Of course I would. Of
Thank
course
you.
I would.